Good evening. Welcome. Welcome to Unity Temple on the Plaza tonight and a benefit for KKFI, the Pete Seeger Birthday Memorial Celebration Concert Extravaganza, good time, get together, hangout, party, yeah. And I just want to welcome you for a moment here and introduce myself. My name is Betsy Ellis, and my affiliation with the station has always been informal, but very, very dear and close. And my history in music here in Kansas City is deeply entwined with KKFI and has been for longer than I care to admit, because that would give away some age things. And so, at any rate, it's really my great pleasure and honor to be the MC and the host tonight. And you'll be hearing from me musically a bit, too, because sometimes people think that's better than when I'm talking. But what I'd like to do is introduce you to the president of the board of KKFI, who's going to give us some opening remarks, Kathy Peters.
And what I'm going to do is talk about Pete Seeger. I first met Pete Seeger in October of 1988 when he came to Kansas City. He stayed with my late husband Steve Peters and me at our house as the Cross Currents Board hosted the Sing Out Board when Sing Out was in Kansas City for its annual conference. And the Sing Out Board members gave a concert in October of 1988. They also had some gatherings and some meetings, and there was a very memorable jam at the Suckiel's house with Pete Seeger. It was so cool. And I had the privilege of being Pete's driver while he was in Kansas City. And I also was a member of the union that he helped start, Local 1000 of the American Federation of Musicians. So I met Pete at a few of the union meetings afterward as well. And I want to tell you a few stories at the start of this set and at the start of the next set that we heard from Pete or about Pete based on my experience with getting to know him just a little bit. And the first thing I want to tell you is that Pete refused to be the person who was the star. He wasn't in it to be the star. He was in it to be part of the group. And the first time I really became aware of that was when I called his wife Toshi to see if there was anything special that we needed to do about diet restrictions, because he was getting on in years when he was in town in '88, and I wanted to make sure we didn't do anything wrong. Toshi chewed me out. She'd gotten a call from the Kansas City Star, and Pete was so upset that the Star called to say, well, Pete's going to be in concert in Kansas City, and we want to interview Pete. They didn't want to be interviewed. It wasn't Pete it was in concert. It was the Sing Out Board that was in concert. It was the whole board. So I had to show Pete this poster to say, look, Pete, you're just down here in the corner. We don't have you in the middle. And Pete, here is the public service announcement, and you're first because you're Pete Seeger, but there's no more space for you than anybody else, and we listed everybody. And we had the whole board sign this, not just the performing members. So Pete was mollified and understood that we were doing this with him as a part of the group, helping to carry things out as a part of the group. And that was his whole purpose, was to be part of the group. I'm going to tell you one more Pete Seeger story before we get on with the concert. I was his driver, as I said, and so I drove him past the old Fool Killer building at 39th and Main. Now, Cross Currents is the successor to the Fool Killer. Cross Currents is Kansas City's folk arts alliance, and we had sold the building a few years ago and formed Cross Currents as a collaborative umbrella organization, and I was talking to Pete about how we were trying to survive doing carrying out our mission without a building, and I told him about this radio station that several of us were involved with that had organizational meetings there in the building, the Fool Killer building at 39th and Main. And Pete gave me the advice that I heard him tell the Cross Currents Board, the Sing Out Board, and I'm going to tell you, and that is this. Pete said, successful organizations work, play, and eat together. Keep that in mind. Work, play, and eat together, and we'll survive like KKFI for another 25 years. One last thing to say, Pete's birthday would be tomorrow, May 3rd. I heard people at the most recent Folk Alliance conference say that we should make May 3rd a day of community service. And I think that's a good idea because that fits in with what Pete taught us, community service. So, enjoy. Let's get on with the music.
Well, I think that's a great idea, and thank you so much for those stories. I'd like to invite our first musical act to come out and make their way to where they're coming on stage here, a band called Old Sound. And if you haven't heard about them yet, you will hear plenty more about them, just pretty much by the hour. They recently released a brand new album, and I happen to know the person who engineered and produced it because he's a fellow Wilder. Phil Wade worked with these guys to make a really beautiful recording, and I'm sure they have copies here in the hall. So just outside the door, there's a table of the artist recordings or anything related to that. So I haven't known these nice guys for too long, but they've quickly become one of my favorite bands, and I'm just so happy that they're here to get the music part of it kicking off. And it may take a second, to see what you need to do and make yourselves at home and enjoy the music of Old Sound.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy, for the wonderful introduction. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. There's a green one and a pink one, a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university, and they all got put in boxes, and they all came out the same. And now the doctors and their lawyers and business executives, and they all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course and drink their martinis dry, and they all have pretty children, and the children go to school, and the children go to summer camp, and then to the university, and they all get put in boxes, and they all come out the same. On the hillside. Here we go. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, and boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. There's a green one and a pink one, a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same, and they all look just the same. Well, thank you.
Hang me, oh hang me, and I'll be dead and gone. Hang me, oh hang me, and I'll be dead and gone. It's not thinking that I mind, just laid in jail so long. Been all around this world, working on a new railroad with mud up to my knees. Working on a new railroad with mud up to my knees. Working for John Henry, and he's mighty hard to please. Been all around this world, up on the Blue Ridge Mountain is where I'll make my stand. Up on the Blue Ridge Mountain is where I'll make my stand. It's a rifle on my shoulder and a pistol in my hand. Been all around this world. Lulu, oh Lulu, open up your door. Lulu, oh Lulu, come and open up your door before I have to open it with my old 44. Been all around this world. Mama and Papa, little sister make three. Mama and Papa and little sister make three. Take me down to the gallows, it's the last they'll see of me. Been all around this world. Oh, hang me, and I'll be dead and gone. Hang me, oh, hang me, and I'll be dead and gone. It's not the hanging that I mind, just laid in jail so long. I've been all around this world. Hang me, oh, hang me, and I'll be dead and gone. Hang me, oh, hang me, and I'll be dead and gone. It's not the hanging that I mind, it's laid in jail so long.
Thank you.
That is old sound. Thank you guys very much. And yeah, right? It's really beautiful music. One of the things that is bound to happen at an event like this is there's going to be a lot of collaborative moments, and including maybe all of us at one point or another, or all of the time, anytime. This is a open forum, sing-along kind of participatory moment. I was over there in the little boxes, and I happen to, I was familiar with that song, but I learned it a lot better because of a certain television show and stuff. So it was kind of funny. Popular culture and folk music go well together. But Chad is going to be making music with some of us right. Oh, here she is. Mikal Shapiro is in the house, everybody. Co-host of one of the newest shows on KKFI, River Trade Radio. And her co-host is with us tonight, too. She might be coming out here to join us, am I right? Is Kasey Rausch? And we also have Emily Tummons.
Dear friends.
And we'll be doing this and then transitioning into a set with Tony Ladesich. And then I'm starting my first musical joining in. So I'm going to introduce myself with the rest of everybody. You've done very well. Thank you. Yeah.
Betsy Ellis, folks. So Pete died on January 27th of this year, and soon after, a dear friend of mine was going through her passing, and this song came to me, and I don't know where it came from, but I think it may have came from Pete, post-mortem. So I'm doing a Pete Seeger cover, post-mortem. And I'm doing it in his spirit with my friends. This way to heaven, this way to heaven, way down through the Sycamore Valley. Free all your lovers, love all your brethren, and tell them you love them forever. Bear the witness while the boughs bend to hold you, and mend all the wounds that you've carried. Release all your children back into the river, and tell them you love them forever. This way to heaven, this way to heaven, way down through the Sycamore Valley. Leave all your worries, but give them your blessing. You bury your courage within them. Thank you, folks.
Thank you for participating, and thank you for inviting me to join you on that, Mikal. I appreciate that a lot. Our next artist is someone I've known a very, very long time, and have played music with in quite a few different settings, with other people, with just the two of us sometimes, and he's a songwriter I respect very much, and he's also a filmmaker who's done quite a bit to promote and keep commemorating and celebrate a lot of Kansas City's music history. One of the documentaries that he made is called Cowtown Ballroom, Sweet Jesus, and it's the story of our celebrated Cowtown Ballroom, and of course what brought that about. And if you don't know about that, well, you just got a way you can find out with a documentary made by Tony Ladesich, my personal friend, who will be coming out any moment, I'm sure. Hi, here he is. Tony Ladesich is coming to the stage. He's got a few songs, and he'll be joined by some guests, and he represents for a lot of different aspects of folk music, and it's a real pleasure to have you as part of this event. Tony, welcome.
Thank you. I gotta get this down to an acceptable, what's the opposite of height? Low. Yeah, it's funny, looking around, and I thought, Joe and I really should have invented some sort of like a bat signal, but with the Cowtown Ballroom logo. So when there were shows that, folks that liked either went to Cowtown, you just put up the Cowtown signal. This first song comes at kind of a request from Mr. Barry down there, and I kind of come to Pete Seeger by way of Woody Guthrie, and have then gone on to kind of learn about how powerful and kind of a punk rock of an individual Pete Seeger was. But I know that Pete and Arlo did this song a bunch together, and so the song could have been written yesterday. The crops are all in, the peaches they're rotting. The oranges are piled in their creosote dumps. Flying them back to the Mexican border to pay all their money to wade back again. Father's own father, he waded that river. They took all the money he made in his life. Brothers and sisters come work in the fruit trees. They rode on the trucks till they took down to die. Goodbye to my Juan, goodbye Rosalita, adios mis amigos, Jesus Maria. You won't find your names when you ride the big airplane. All they will call you will be deportees. Some of us are illegal, some are not wanted. Our work contract's out and we have to move on. 600 miles to that Mexican border. They chase us like outlaws, like rustlers, like thieves. We died in your hills and we died in your deserts. We died in your valleys
plains. We died neath your trees and we died in your bushes, both sides of the river. We died both the same. Goodbye to my one, goodbye Rosalita. Adios, mis amigos, Jesus y Maria. You won't find your names when you ride the big airplane. All they will call you will be deportees. The sky plane caught fire over Los Gatos Canyon. A fireball of lightning that shook all our hills. Who are these friends all scattered like dry leaves? The radio says that they're just deportees. Is this the best way we can grow our big orchards? Is this the best way we can grow our good fruit? Fall like the dry leaves and rot on our topsoil. Be called by no name except deportees. Goodbye to my one, goodbye Rosalita. Adios, mis amigos, Jesus y Maria. You won't find your names when you ride the big airplane. All they will call you will be deportees.
I'd like to bring Mikal Shapiro back to the stage. She's my sort of partner in crime, wherever she may be. So one of my favorite things about Pete Seeger, and I'm sure somebody will talk about the House Un-American Activities Committee and the fact that Pete Seeger pretty much gave the middle finger to all that nonsense and told the American government that they were being un-American, which I find to be the most punk rock thing on the planet. And but musically speaking, these are a couple of my favorite songs that are associated with Pete Seeger. The song's called Old Dan Tucker. Old Dan Tucker was a fine old man, washed his face in a frying pan, combed his head with a wagon wheel, died with a toothache in his heel. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Well, old Dan Tucker, he come to town, riding a billy goat, leading the hound. The hound dog bites and the jump, little jump. Old Dan Tucker up on the stone. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Well, old Dan Tucker got drunk and fell, fire and kicked up, holy hell. Hot Tucker in his shoe. Ashes through. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your... Keep strumming that, keep strumming. going to fix this. It's my level of... It's not going to fix. Here we go. We're going to do that verse again because it's too good. Now old Dan Trucker got drunk and fell in the fire and he kicked up, holy hell. A red hot coal fell in his shoe and oh my Lord, how the ashes flew. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker, you're too late to get your supper. Now old Dan Tucker, he come to town. He's swinging them ladies all around. One to the right and one to the left. Then one he loves best. So get out the way, old Dan Tucker. You're too late to get your supper. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker. You're too late to get your supper. Get out the way, old Dan Tucker. You're too late to get your supper.
I was trying to get out of the way.
It's drifting on me. It's drifting. Is it okay? I got it. And we're gonna. Really cool that you danced on it. I was kind of trying to do a little dancing. So years ago, I used to play in some big loud rock bands, and my mom, who had insomnia, she used to call me up sometimes. And ladies and gentlemen, Betsy Ellis. So my mom used to call me up sometimes and she'd say, Tony, I was watching television last night. It's about 2 a.m. And there was a man on television and he was singing for people. And he got everybody to sing with him. And I think you should really add that to your act. It's like, well, it's not really something people do right now, Mom. When I'm screaming and playing loud guitars. But tonight, in honor of my mom, everybody's going to help sing. So, this song is one of my favorite songs called Oh Mary, Don't You Weep. And you guys are going to help us sing on the chorus. So I'm going to teach it to you. Super, super easy. So here we go. You guys are going to go, oh Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh Mary, don't you weep no more. The Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh Mary, don't you weep. Let's do it again. Here we go.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
If I could, I surely would stand on the rock where Moses stood. The Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Okay, here's where you come in.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Oh, Mary wore 3 links of chain. On every link was Jesus' name. The Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Here we go, everybody.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
One of these nights about 12 o'clock, this whole world is gonna rock. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Well, Moses stood on the Red Sea shore, smote the water with a 2x4. Oh, he got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Here we go.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Well, old Mr. Satan, he got mad. He lost the soul that he thought he had. The Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. The Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Brothers and sisters, don't you cry. There'll be good times by and by. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more.
Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Well, God gave Noah the rainbow sign. There's gonna be fire, not water next time. The Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Here we go, everybody.
Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Oh, Mary, don't you weep no more. Pharaoh's army got drowned. Oh, Mary, don't you.
Thank you all so much.
Tony Ladesich and Mikal Shapiro, everybody. Thank you so
Betsy
much.
Ellis.
Going back to some of those roots, here's another roots piece from Pete. Loved, of course, a lot of traditional music, and so I have an offering from the first family of country music, as they were mostly known. And June, anyway, was on the Rainbow Quest show with Johnny, Pete's television show for PBS. But this song is one of their early ones. It's the East Virginia Blues. I was born in East Virginia, North Carolina, I did go. There I courted a pretty young woman, and her age I did not know. Well, her hair was dark and curly, and her cheeks a rosy red. On her breast she wore white lilies, where I longed to lay my head. In my heart you are my darling, at my gate you're welcome in. At my door I'll always greet you, if your love I could only win. When I'm awake, I'm dreaming of you. When I sleep, I get no rest. Moments seem to me like hours, aching pains across my breast. I'd rather be in some dark holler where the sun refused to shine than to see you another once, darling, and to know you'll never be mine. When I'm dead and in my coffin with my pale face towards the sun, you can come see me, darling, see the deed, see the deed, see the deed that you have done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's the Carter family means a lot to me, and the roots. You know, Pete and everything that he represented for us is very important. Something we can all continue to learn from. But those roots, that stuff is really important to me. Speaking of roots that run deep, you know, you get your morning started off right. If you do, you know, that's you might be wanting to listen to the Morning Buzz on KKFI, and we have another speaker to share some remarks with you, and he's a notable personality, and I always see him when I'm there for the coming in to maybe talk on a pledge drive show. He's always there. He's always there, and like I said, he's the host of the Morning Buzz and so many other things with KKFI. Please make him welcome, Mike Murphy.
This little podium is a cruel hoax. Well, as Betsy said, my name is Mike Murphy, and I've been asked to speak this evening about Pete Seeger and the civil rights movement. When people say civil rights movement, we tend to think of the 1950s and 1960s, but Pete was ahead of the curve. In February 1942, Pete sang a song called Dear Mr. President, in which he extolled, "This is the reason that I want to fight. Not because everything's perfect or everything's right. No, it's just the opposite. I'm fighting because I want a better America with better laws, and better homes and jobs and schools, and no more Jim Crow, and no more rules. Like you can't ride on this train because you're a Negro. You can't live here because you're a Jew. You can't work here because you're a union man." This eerily prescient foretelling of America's post-war years set the stage for what was to come, and Pete was certainly up to the fight. Okay, so let's fast forward 15 years later, coming out the other end of the McCarthy era, when Pete met a fellow target of FBI surveillance and intimidation, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., at the Highlander Folk School in Tennessee in 1957. Seeger helped King and other civil rights activists incorporate song into their organizing tactics. It was at Highlander that Seeger first sang for King what would become the anthem of the civil rights movement, "We Shall Overcome." Harry Belafonte later said that although the song came out of Dr. King's heritage, he was unfamiliar with it. He did, however, remark that it was just the song that the movement needed. As for Pete, he often said that his only contribution to the old Negro spiritual was for changing it from a first-person singular to a first-person plural point of view, changing it from "I shall overcome" to "we shall overcome," while in one sense just swapping out one syllable for another, but in a larger sense, giving a generation its marching orders. Now, I mentioned earlier that people often associate the civil rights movement with the 50s and 60s, but folks like Pete Seeger and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. are done a disservice when we think of the civil rights era as a past tense thing. It's a mistake to view the civil rights movement through a black and white lens. And I mean that in every sense of that phrase. New civil rights issues have arisen that weren't really considered back in the day. Nowadays, Muslims and LGBT folks, for example, have their civil rights challenged daily. But you know what? We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Women making significantly less than their male counterparts for the same jobs. We still have been unsuccessful in getting an equal rights amendment passed. But you know what? We shall overcome. Undocumented languish in detention centers. But you know what? Si se puede. Oh, no. We shall overcome. Now, I mention all these other groups not by any stretch to suggest that we live in a post-racial society. There is a new Jim Crow in this age of incarceration. As Michelle Alexander points out, there are more black men in prison today in this country than were enslaved in 1850. Adding insult to injury, oppressive voter ID laws serve as a poll tax for the new millennium. But you know what? We shall overcome. Now, when inducting Pete into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Harry Belafonte said that Pete would get his nomination for the fifth face on Mount Rushmore. I've been trying to picture that all day. And, and as cool as that would be to see, I don't think that would be what Pete would want. I think Pete Seeger would feel a better remembrance of his legacy would be the use of his songs to inspire further action. Or how about this, the use of his action to inspire further songs? He said, dropping a huge hint in a room full of talented songsters. Maybe we should take one of his songs and transform it to first person plural. What if we had a hammer? Well, the truth is the best way for us to serve Pete's legacy is to serve humanity, is to serve each other. And I don't mean that in any kind of weird Twilight Zone, it's a cookbook kind of way. I think you guys all know what I mean. And I'm sure Pete wouldn't mind if we stood on his metaphorical shoulders, because for Pete's sake, we shall overcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike Murphy. Well, look here, we're having some good moments coming up right here. I'd like to say a little bit about the next group of fellas that are going to be making their way up here to sing a couple of wonderful classics for you all, including the station manager of KKFI himself, Mr. Barry Lee, is in the house. And he had the, I believe, well, it might have been a group idea with the concept, but he was the one that first spoke to me about this, and he's organizer of it, and so we're really grateful to him for that. And he's joined by a couple of fellas who are stalwarts and really, kind of like MVPs in the music scene here in Kansas City and have been for decades. Mr. Ron Roberts, he's been in a lot of rock bands. He's been in a lot of folk bands, like back in those old Vanguard days, when I mentioned that before with the Cowtown Ballroom and the coffee house that was there in that building, and that kind of got that movement going, really rocking here. And then he turned into a jazzer. So he's done a lot of different musical styles and supported and played with so many musicians here in Kansas City and beyond. And Mr. Jim Zander has been a long time participant in Kansas City's folk scene and beyond as well. So they're getting all electric and stuff. Man, look at that green bass. That looks pretty good. I like that. it's one of those headless model things. Sorry, I get a little excited. I'm, I play the fiddle, but I like to play the big fiddle, not the upright one though, but the electric one too. So the bass kind of, I'm like, I don't really know much about that kind of stuff, but I pretend to geek out on it. How many of you have been to the Beatles shows that Barry has produced before here for other benefits for KKFI? Pretty stellar lineups on that. So this is something I'm really excited to hear as well. Do you guys need anything? You feeling good? Are you just waiting for me to shut up? And I want to. Oh, we need bass in the amp. Okay, Christopher, if you let's see, is plugged in. Bill will check that. Yeah, let's.
Howdy, folks.
Yeah. No.
Christopher, are you getting a bass signal up there? Okay.
Yay! I found my new calling.
Yeah, back it off a little.
You want to back it up a little?
Although I prefer to hear him than me.
Back it up a lot.
Yeah, take it back a little more, Chris. Christopher's running sound up there. He's doing a really good job today.
Can we get any of that bass in the monitor? We might need to plug this in somewhere. I really know very little about this kind of thing, but we'll get this figured out. That's
Yeah, it's coming out. We're not getting it in the monitor. That's the problem, Chris. Sorry.
Move up, Ron.
Yeah, you're gonna have to move up. I'm sorry. Didn't know this was gonna be that complicated.
Is Kasey gonna sing?
Yeah, she's good. We'll have Kasey help us too.
So
We're
we
probably
have
all
here
out of
Barry
tune now,
Lee,
too.
Ron Roberts, and Jim Sander, and welcome them to their musical portion of this show. Thank you, guys.
All right, since you're all in a singing mood, please help me. First one, you all know, I'm sure, it came out in 1962. I was 10 years old. It was the first record I ever bought. It was done by the Kingston Trio, but it was Pete's song, Where Have All the Flowers Gone? You all know how the chorus goes. It's a real short one, but it's like, when will they ever learn? You can sing that part, right? Would you please help me? All right, we're going to try it and see how we do. All right. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long, long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all those graveyards gone? Long, long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Gone to flowers, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Y'all gonna have to help me with this next one because I got a cold about 2 days ago.
Slip in one quick word here, Barry.
Sure,
I wanna
Ron.
acknowledge my brother Terry Roberts, who's here tonight, and my sister-in-law Carla. Terry told me if I ever played again, I've been retired, but Terry told me that I ever played again, he'd kick my ass, and didn't tell him he'd kick my ass. He was quite capable of doing that, so he's here.
Proud to share the stage with these two guys. Ron is one of the premier jazz bass players in Kansas City history. He's been retired for a number of years, but he came out of retirement just to do this show tonight, and I'm very appreciative. of him.
Two of my favorite guys, Barry and Pete.
And my new friend Jim Sander, he's played in folk clubs since the late 50s. He's still a working musician, plays bass in a number of bands. He was here through the whole folk thing in the early 60s and onward. So I'm very pleased to play with Jim tonight, too.
Yeah, Jim's my brother-in-law. Jim and I are brother-in-laws, and we started playing these tunes together when we were 13 or 14 up in his bedroom on St. John Avenue.
St. John and Belmont. All right, you got to help with this next one because I'm not even going to play on it. Did it in a different key than I'm used to. So we're going to get Kasey Rausch out here to help us because my voice is somewhat suspect tonight. This is Michael Roll the Boat Ashore, which Pete loved to do, and I know you all know it. I've known it since I've been in kindergarten. So we're going to let Jim play a little intro, and then we'll start with the chorus, and then hopefully Kasey has the lyrics with her. And help us on the chorus and just sing the whole thing with us, please. It would be really nice if we all could just sing this one because it'll bring back my kindergarten days. All right. Michael, row the boat ashore, hallelujah. Michael, row the boat ashore, hallelujah. The sister helped to trim the sails, hallelujah. The sister helped to trim the sails, hallelujah. That's good. Michael, row the boat ashore. You gotta be quick. Hallelujah. Michael, row the boat ashore. Hallelujah. The river Jordan is chilly and cold. Hallelujah. It chills the body, but not the soul. Hallelujah. Michael, row the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Michael, row the boat ashore. Hallelujah. The river is deep and the water is wide. Hallelujah. Greener pastures on the other side. Hallelujah. Chorus. Michael, row the boat ashore. Hallelujah. time, really loud. Michael row the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Michael row the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Beautiful, thank you. Thank you, Kasey.
That is a classic. Thank you guys so much for that. And we have another group offering here. And this night is, of course, great for group working, but it's nice to hear a single voice and an instrument, or even not an instrument sometimes too. Rosy's Bar and Grill is making their way up to the stage. Yeah! Folk superstars of Kansas City. I couldn't believe this when I was reading this, and on some of their material that you can find online. They've been playing since 1977 in Kansas City here. 77, man. I think about 77. I think that was, I was listening to, well, what was I listening to in 77? Well, I couldn't tell you because, maybe I wasn't born yet. But that's a long time, and that's a really respectable career that still goes here. And these women have been supporters of social justice and fighters of injustice for quite some time, and do that with their music and with their dedication to showing up, speaking out, making sure voices are heard. And I really appreciate them for that, and I find them very inspiring and of course entertaining too. So, and now you get to play the green bass. That's so exciting. I'm like, it's pretty cool. I mean, and it looks good. It's a good contrast with the outfit. Bill Sendall right here is helping us out with some stuff here on stage, but he's also the new volunteer and events coordinator at KKFI. So we welcome Bill to the KKFI family. We'll get this set up, and I know you already made them welcome, but I'm excited to hear some offerings from Rosy's Bar and Grill. Here we are. I guess so.
All right, good evening. Wonderful to share this evening with you. Never seen Joyce play electric bass before, and I've seen her play a lot of instruments. Play a little bit.
They say they can't hear you.
You can't hear me? There. No? Now?
There's no bass in the monitor.
They're working on the bass.
I can hear it in the house.
I can hear me. Can you hear me now? We're going to do a song that was Pete Seeger wrote in 1967 and recorded in 67, but it's probably most famous for when it was not heard. All right, some people know what I'm going to sing already. It was at one of the most terrible years of the Vietnam War, 67, 68, 69, and he wrote this song and performed it for the Smothers Brothers show. He did 4 songs about war, one a Revolutionary War song, this Civil War song, a World War I song, and this song, which sounds like it's a World War II song. And lo and behold, when the show aired, snip, snip, this song was censored. CBS thought it was too controversial. Even though Columbia Records, which owns CBS, had already had Pete Seeger record this song on an album called Waist Deep in the Big Muddy and Other Love Songs. We learned it for the Iraq War. We thought there were some parallels there. Joyce, take it away. It was back in 1941. I was a member of a good platoon. We were on maneuvers in Louisiana one night by the light of the moon. The captain told us to ford a river. That's how it all began. We were knee-deep in the big muddy, but the big fool said to push on. Sergeant said, "Sir, are you sure this is the best way back to the base?" "Sergeant, go on, I forded this river about a half mile above this place. It'll be a little soggy, but just keep slogging. We'll soon be on dry ground. We were waist deep in the big muddy, and the big bull said to push on. The sergeant said, sir, with all this equipment, no man will be able to swim. Sergeant, don't be a nervous Nelly, the captain said to him. All we need is a little determination. Men, follow me, I'll lead on. We were neck deep in the big muddy, and the big bull said to push on. All at once, the moon clouded over. We heard a gurgle and cry. A few seconds later, the captain's helmet was all that floated by. The sergeant said, turn around, men, I'm in charge from now on. And we just made it out of the big muddy with the captain dead and gone. We stripped and dived and found his body stuck in the old quicksand. I guess he didn't know that the river was deeper than the place he'd once before been. Another stream joins the big muddy about a half mile from where we'd gone. We were lucky to escape the big muddy when the big fool said to push on. Well, I'm not gonna paint any moral, I'll leave that for yourself. Maybe you're still walking, you're still talking, you'd like to keep your health. But every time I read the papers, them old feelings come on. We're waist deep in the big muddy, and the big fool said to push on. We're waist deep in the big muddy, and the big fool said to push on. We're waist deep, neck deep, soon everyone could be over their heads. We're waist deep in the big muddy, and the big fool says to push on.
Thank you. Well, for those of you who don't know us, we do this pretty often. That it's pretty funny that we only are doing 2 songs and 3 of us are changing instruments between the 2 songs. And I don't actually play electric bass. This is the first time I've ever played one in public, and I still don't have any in the monitor if there's anything at all you can do about that. So Carol's really going to introduce this song. The other thing I might mention is we do have flyers out in the lobby. We will be doing a concert on June 14th with Danny Cox as a benefit for the Institute for Research and Education in Human Rights. So pick up a flyer on your way out. If you didn't get one on the way in, please.
I forgot to tell you, he got to sing that song on the Smothers Brothers. They took it to the newspapers, to their credit, and there are probably more people that listened to it in January of '68 than would have when it was supposed to air in the fall of '67. We're going to do a song that Pete Seeger wrote the music to, and a gentleman from Britain wrote the music. I had a chance to sing this in Northampton about a month ago, and there was applause for the fact that there was a song from Pete Seeger, so he was loved around the world. Became it's in a lot of the anthologies from the civil rights movement. It's called One Man's Hands. One pair of hands can't break a prison down. 2 pair of hands can tear a prison down. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round.
One voice can't shout to make them hear.
One voice can shout to make them hear. Two voices can shout to make them hear. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come around. We'll see that day come around. Yeah, you're supposed to sing.
One person's strength can't ban the atom bomb.
One person's strength can't ban the atom bomb. Two people's strength can ban the atom bomb. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come around. We'll see that day come around.
One person's strength can't break the color bar.
One person's strength can break the collar bar. Two people's strength can break the collar bar. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come around. We'll see that day come around.
One person's strength can't make the union roll.
One person's strength can make the union roll. Two people's strength can make the union roll. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come round. We'll see that day come round.
One pair of eyes can't see the way ahead.
One pair of eyes can see the way ahead. Two pair of eyes can see the way ahead. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come around. We'll see that day come around. But if 2 and 2 and 50 make a million, we'll see that day come around. We'll see that day come around.
Well, I don't know if Betsy was planning to say anything about Bill Claus, but he's been around KKFI for a long, long time, and he's just getting ready to retire for the second time as special events coordinator. What was your official title?
That's good enough.
Okay. And we've known him for a very long time, and he's asked us to play with him on this song.
Thank you for making me an honorary member of Rosy. I know the bar part fits me anyway. So I had to have the pleasure of meeting Pete Seeger a couple of times. First of all, when Kathy Peters talked about him coming to Kansas City, I was at that jam session at Bob and Diana's, and at another jam session later on, and they were there because of Sing Out magazine and the book, the Sing Out Bible that folk singers have, where has all the lyrics in it. So that's real emblematic of the kind of life that Pete led, which he always talked to. The other way I knew him was at the Great Labor Arts Exchange in Silver Springs, Maryland, which is another organization that he started that involved people doing working people's culture and music and song and spoken word and puppetry and all that sort of thing, and they did that every year. My wife and I went to that a few times, and Pete Seeger was at that many times. Anyway, this is a song that he always talked about himself as being a link in the chain. you know, the music from, you know, generations before, being a link in the chain, passing the music to the future generations. So the song I'm going to sing is actually a song I heard for the first time at the jam session, where Pete suggested somebody else sing the song, which I think is also, you know, that's all about Pete Seeger. Pete Seeger was never about Pete Seeger. Pete Seeger was about the music. And, you know, I had a chance to interview him once for KKFI. He was more prone to talk about Woody Guthrie than he was himself, or the other people that he played with. Anyway, this is a song that was popular in the 1850s, written by Stephen Foster. I heard it for the first time when Pete Seeger had him play it at this jam session. And it wouldn't be a Pete Seeger song, I think, if it wasn't one that you could encourage people to sing along with. So I'm going to start with the chorus, and I would like for you to, if you don't know it, learn it quickly if you would. The chorus goes, it's a song, the sigh of the weary. Okay, we're going to do that again. It's a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all sup sorrow with the Lord. It's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a pale being made who mourns her life away, with a warm heart whose better days are o'er. Though her voice would be merry, she's sighing all the day. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a sigh that has wafted o'er the troubled waves. 'Tis a wail that's heard upon the shore. 'Tis a prayer that is murmured around the lowly grave. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. As we seek earth and beauty and music bright and gay, there are frail forms fainting at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks still say, oh, hard times come again no more. Acapella now. It's a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more.
Rosy's Bar and Grill with Bill Klaus. Thank you so much. We have another musical act, a speaker, and another musical act, and we're going to have a brief intermission. And what's coming up next would be something I'm going to be involved with. And I have a little something I really need to look at over there that make sure it's still in tune. A tiny little sneaky cable that, yeah, it's hard, I tried not to get the invisible one, but apparently that's what I got. My good friend Jason Beers is hopefully walking out behind me somewhere here very shortly, because I'd rather switch over to one of those mics and then we can have our repartee. Hey, there he is, my good friend Jason Beers, that guy that, you know, you're like, oh, who's that guy? With his long neck banjo, too. I get to press Bill. Oh, I see the whole case. I know. That's awesome. Bill, it's still in tune. Yay! I mean, at least it's in tune with myself. I've only known Jason for a few years now, but he's one of my favorite people to make music with, and yeah. So we have. What do you have to say for yourself?
Here's a song that I really like to play and listen to, in all of its variations.
Pete liked this one too.
The chief, the stain, the trader's dollars. Now look away, rolling river. My daughter, you shall never follow. Away I'm bound, away across the wide Missouri. For 7 years I courted Sally. Now look away, rolling river. For 7 more I long to have her. Away and bound, away across the wide Missouri. She said she would not be my lover. Now look away, rolling river. Because I was a dirty sailor. Away and bound, away across the wide Missouri. At last there came a Yankee skipper. Now look away, rolling river. He winked his eye and he tipped his flipper. Away and bound, away across the wide Missouri. He gave that chief that fire water. Now look away, rolling river. Across the river he stole his daughter. Away and bound, away across the wide Missouri. Oh, Shenandoah, I love your daughter. Now look away, rolling river. I take her across your rolling water. Away I'm bound away across the wide Missouri. Away I'm bound away across the wide Missouri. Away I'm bound away across the wide Missouri. Thank you.
I enjoyed that very much. Jason has composed quite a lot of music with different instruments. You can ask him about what's the name of the guy that did the piano?
Jumbo Puny O'Dainty.
He's also, it's one of his noms de plume. Jumbo Puny O'Dainty wrote sort of a series of ragtime piano pieces in all the keys. These are kind of the things that happen out of this man's brain here. And then with this banjo and playing old-time banjo, especially with the clawhammer style, Jason has composed a lot of really kind of innovative banjo tunes. And then he's writing some songs that I'm just really, I love when you can write a song that sounds really old and not be cheesy about it, but just have that old sound. And
I just wanted to write my own folk songs.
You're writing your own folk songs. So you're a modern folk singer. And this is a song that Jason wrote, If You'd Be My Bird. Are we good?
I think so.
Yeah.
Bird, I'd open up your cage. Would you sing your song to me? I'd be all ears, yes, I want to hear your pretty melody. If you'd be my bird, I'd be on top of the world, looking down upon this land. You'd fly around my head and sing what you said to me each and every day. Yeah. If you'd be my bird, I'd get you to sing loud all day and all night. Get up with the sun and get down with the moon. Your song would make things right. If you'd be my bird, I'd open up your cage. Would you sing your song to me? I'd be all ears, yes, I want to hear your pretty melody. Thank you.
Hooray. We have some remarks coming up from a remarkable playwright here in Kansas City. I had so many things I wanted to tell you about him, but you just have to catch me later, and then I can just catch you all up. But I've been privileged to participate in an onstage band on one of this distinguished writer's plays. It was a production at the the Missouri Repertory Theater, WMKS, where music kills sorrow. And we have another fellow castmate who's part of the show tonight. In fact, coming up, Danny Cox on the second set. There's so many. But in the meantime, one of his plays that he's written, and I'm talking about Mr. Frank Higgins, who will be coming up here to have some remarks. He wrote a song. He's written some songs too, but he wrote a play called Black Pearl Sings, and it will be produced at Spinning Tree Theater here in Kansas City next year, in next March. But please make him welcome, and we'll hear what he has to say. Mr. Frank Higgins.
I'm going to read quickly. When Pete Seeger was 21, he met a 27-year-old guy who became one of the great influences in his life, Woody Guthrie. At Woody's encouragement, they rode the rails together as hobos. As Pete said, Woody was my big education about America. I'd gone to private schools all my life. Here's part of the education that Woody gave Pete. He said, "Kid, if you want to learn about this country, you ought to learn how to make a living singing in the saloons. Here's 3 or 4 things that will help keep you alive. First, don't be too eager. Put your banjo on your back, go in and buy a nickel beer, and sip it as slow as you can. Sooner or later, somebody will say, 'Kid, can you play that thing?' Don't be too eager. Say a little, keep on sipping your beer. Sooner or later, somebody will say, 'Kid, I got a quarter for you if you'll pick us a tune.' Now you swing it around and play your best song. Well, with that instruction, I never went hungry." But though Woody and Pete were in some ways similar, their differences are part of what brings us all here tonight. It was during the 40s that Woody put a sign on his guitar, "This machine kills fascists." Pete would later write on his banjo a very different message. "This machine surrounds hate and forces it to surrender." In 1951, Pete was in Hollywood with the Weavers and went to a party, and Woody was there. It became the last time Pete Seeger ever heard Woody Guthrie sing. Woody sang a new song he had written with these lines about the FBI, who had interrogated him just shortly before. "They asked, would I fight for my country? I answered the FBI, yay. I will point a gun for my country, but I won't guarantee you which way." Though it would have been easy, Pete never thought that way. Even when blacklisted, and he was blacklisted longer than most, Pete eked out a living playing for school children and helped plant the seeds that would create the rebirth of folk music, which is a different way of saying that more than most, he helped change the world. At every step, Pete Seeger stayed true to the words he wrote on his banjo. For every one of us here tonight who is a musician or an artist or a fan, what words do each of us have written on our instrument or on our soul to which we will stay true? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank Higgins. We have our final act of this set and a brief intermission to come after this. And next set will include, people like Danny Cox and Madison Ward and the Mama Bear and the Accidentals, Kasey Rausch. Oh, Rausch, that's a name that comes up a lot. I said this backstage. Who's Kasey Rausch's cousin? And everybody raised their hands. Not really. Kasey Rausch is part of a great big musical family and tradition in this neck of the woods. And one of the latest entrances into the Kansas City music scene is her cousins, who are brothers. And they are known as Kyle and Colin Rausch, but their band name when they play out and about, this is kind of the semi-unplugged version of a band called Shy Boys. But I'm sure they're not totally shy all the way. I mean, they look very friendly, and we had kind of almost, we met tonight, but I'm already a fan of these guys, and I think you will, well, who knows? I don't know what you'll think, but I think you're going to like it, because I know I will be. And after that, like I said, brief intermission, but please make them feel really, really happy and Roushy and everything. The Shy Boys here, everybody.
Hello. I was kind of horrified when I first started watching the concert because I found out that most of the musicians were saying something before they would play the songs, and I hadn't prepared a thing to say. So I'll just say the songs we're playing tonight, I originally didn't know they were Pete Seeger tunes, and they had sort of served as sort of a backdrop to our upbringing. And Kasey and Barry contacted me and asked if we'd play one of these songs tonight, because it's sort of been a big part of several family events in our lives, and we're really excited to get to play these for you in the style of the Byrds.
What will you give me? Said the sad bells of Rimini. Is there hope for the future? Say the brown bells of murder. Who made the mine owner? Say the black bells of Rhonda. And who killed the miner? Say the grim bells of Blina. Put nails in corn, say the bells of Newport. All would be well if, say the bells of Cardiff. Why so worried, sisters, why sang the silver bells of white? And what will you give me? Say the sad bells of Rimini. What will you give me? Say the sad bells of Rimini. Is there hope for the future? Say the brown bells of murder. Who made the mine owner? Say the black bells of Rhonda. Who killed the miner? Said the grim bells of Blina.
Thank you.
heard this song 1 million times, and I still don't have the lyrics memorized.
Well, I'm gonna take a picture of you guys.
Hello. A taste
Cool.
of honey.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap. A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rent, a time to sow. A time for haste, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late.
Thank you.
Shy Boys, brief intermission, and we'll have a second set, which we're making it tighter, especially because I'll use less words. Thank you guys so much.